So, Honestly Sarcastic with the Hyperloops. Didn't know what I planned to talk about today. Just figured I was gonna have a long drive in, and there's probably some stuff to go and talk about, but I guess I'll figure it out as I start. So one of the big things right now is that there's a clear shift in the meta for like post nerfs. So originally, for the first video, was talking about what we expected to come of it, and I guess we'll go over why or what we're looking at currently. So the new big deck that everyone's concerned about and everyone's trying to like tech against and beat is Funkar, or FN Unkar Stormtrooper, and they're doing so for good reason. So doesn't matter whether it's like Rainbow, Pol Maz, Vader, Guard, Emo Kids. The other decks all work pretty linear as far as they need to be aggressive. They're there for doing damage, and FN Unkar is slightly different because it's the only deck that really has huge control elements while being capable of still outputting the same amount of damage. I'm currently in just regular traffic right now, so like at some point you're gonna see me in like the crazy rush hour, and I'm not even moving. You'll look insane. But so the thing with Unkar is that because of Imperial Inspection, there's an innate fear that if you can't stick a 3-drop, you're not gonna have additional dice. So for regular decks, 3-drops are kind of unheard of outside of like the Holocron decks, because Holocron is okay, I'm gonna drop 3s and 4s, and Inspection does nothing there. So in those matches, Unkar might not even care about Inspection. But the decks that run Holocron often still run things like Vibro Knife, Makashi Training, in my instances Force Training, Lore of Power sometimes from Palpatine, but probably not so much anymore. But the regular decks, let's say the Rey Qui-Gons, Makashi, Ray Staff, Vibro Knife. I don't think you'll see Force Training there because it's not as good due to Guard. Force Illusions, like any of that stuff is getting bounced, and it's pretty annoying. So the other Rey iterations with Han, you've got like any jetpacks, holdouts, all getting bounced. With Baze, you have like the Overkill, DH. I'm trying to think what are the other good decks. Like, you're not really going to see them bounce like the Force Speeds, unless it's just a freebie and they're willing to take it. And I'm sorry that you can see my steering wheel and my hand turning into the video, but I adjusted because I figured I'd put myself in the middle of the camera, and this was the only way to do it. So you're gonna have to deal with it. Oh my god, I gotta beat a truck. 1 second. Close up the windows. I don't know how bad that sound is. Sorry if it was terrible. Turn on the AC. So, and like that's versus like the more regular decks, like the Vader Guard probably still has the Holocron packages and only a few things they can bounce. But outside of those, even the Salvage Stand like helps interrupt the decks that don't run a bunch of upgrades, because if they're eating you one resource just by rolling out, or 2 if they hit both Salvage Stands, it's severely problematic. So Funkar is public enemy number 1, and it's probably going to stay that way through Gen Con. I don't see it being able to like change within that time frame. But as I thought, Phasma made a huge jump forward with the nerf changes. There were a lot of people that didn't have like concrete lists. A gentleman in my local, Brian, is where I derived my original list from. And like I took it in a slightly different direction. He had air superiority originally in the confiscations. So like some of my tech cards originated from him, and then I just decided I didn't want the tech cards. I wanted like more raw damage. And that originated to or not originated, that went out to like the Patreons, had a lot of gameplay video. They took and altered that version to be able to fight Funkar a bit better, because that version has issues with Funkar. Funkar Savage Stands and Imperials cause ginormous issues for that deck as far as the additional dice and the ability to use your pay side on any of those additional dice, as well as like just be able to remove and keep basic control. So they I think from my list, what got cut was Confiscation and On the Hunt for 2 sabotages, and the rocket launcher got switched to a jetpack. Those are all cuts that are pretty linear. They make perfect sense. The Confiscation that I put in was for versus FN, and it wasn't very good. You could fight FN almost up and up with Phasma, just because you gain a bunch of time and they can't just smoke Phasma. The On the Hunt for me was still a huge tech card that I would still continue to run. It helps immensely versus like Palpatine, as well as any of the blue hero decks that have 8 million shields. If you run into like Baze Ray or like Ray Poe, there's possible to have like Cautions plus Duggins, and maybe even like Jedi Robes, and that's a whole lot of shields. There's only a 1 of tech card, but if you found it could be very explosive versus them, because you got the die control with it, and every a die control card every round plus the ability to pop shields is relatively huge there. So like if I were you, I would definitely try to make space back for the On the Hunt, but it's not necessary. It's a choice. So Phasma's back. I think I might have to knock Poe Maz down to tier 1.5. I've seen a bunch of lists, and people are still doing okay, but it's not the same. The Fast Hands nerf slowing them down made it so that their I roll out and like crush you plan it does not work. So like before with Fast Hands, if you hit a hit and run, then you had a 75% to hit 2, 3 or special, and then you could claim after and have done explosive damage uninterrupted, like probably killed a guy, and it was very, very good then. The Fast Hands nerf slowed it down enough where everyone who's running the best defense could pretty much nerf your entire round. You roll out Poe, best defense, I take 3, don't care. Like no Falcons for 4, no tricky thermals, no crazy Ewing stuff. Like just I'll take 3, that's cool. Gone. Your damage is gone for the round. Unless you got like additional resources from like a prior round, or you're crazy and ran smuggling and then could like DL44 your Maz, it wasn't going to do anything. So Poe Maz has seemed like it's dropped a little bit of the ways, especially due to emo kids being very huge and Funkar, because both of them take advantage of those big expensive things to either A, explode damage, or B, get a bunch of resources to then explode with damage. I believe I put emo kids in tier 1. If not, it's being moved to tier 1. It's one of the easier decks to play as far as your skill level could not be amazing, and you could still crush with it. Similar to how Palpatine can just roll over people, regardless of skill level. If you know how to roll his dice out, resolve them, and like mitigate and claim, you can win any match. Your opponent has to like deal with his dice because he tends to survive too long. But because he gets completely obliterated by any sort of removal, it sets him, in my mind, further behind than emo kids, because emo kids can maintain a similar amount of damage with whilst having still 4 dice and not being as deterred when they run into 1 or 2 pieces of removal. Trying to think. Rainbow, I'm a big fan of, but it's not having great showings. So like there's the Rainbow Guard version and Rainbow Night Sister, and anyone who hears me talk or play knows I much prefer the Night Sister to the Guard. The Guard is much stronger or prevalent in the matches with things like Vader, Poe, Palpatine, any of the like 2 character decks. It's much stronger versus, because you can just remove the damage to some guy that you don't care about, and your opponent really doesn't want to attack that guy, because then they're leaving both Lala and FN alive. So the Guard one's had good showings. The Night Sister one is a bit harder to play than the Guard one, and like I say that, and it sounds weird, but the reason it's a little bit harder to play is because at any given point you can Night Sister, and knowing when to do it, when not to do it. Like, did you luck out and like flip a 3 and then it didn't hit a 3 or a 2, like for like a Vader die? Did you flick a holocron from a special and did it go back to special? Because like those situations hurt, but sometimes you take them because they're just too good to pass up. So I guess I have to move Rainbow down to tier 1, because if it was truly God tier, I think anybody would be able to play with it in Crush, and that may be based on apparent skill level. So it can't be God tier if you can't just play it and win. If Emo Kids was any better, it might have to move to God tier, because you can actually play it with just less relevant skill. There's also like crazy God rolls that are insane. Gentleman I played against in a Q3 yesterday rolled out, he put a 4-speed on Kylo, and when his rollout was special on 4-speed, special on Kylo, resource on Kylo. So it was like, okay, whatever. Then he rolls out Anakin and hits 3 for a resource, 3 for a resource. So I'm looking at that, and the cards I've played by that point left me with a 3-cost card in hand and a 0-cost card in hand, I want to say. There might have been a 1 also. But he resolves the 4-speed, Kylo's my guy for 3, resolves both of Anakin's for 3 more each to do 9, kills my Balatik, who had a shield. He then claims the battlefield and hits my Night Sister for 3 more. It was an obscene round. I went completely crazy with damage because I had like Boundless. So I ended up still winning because Anakin got to 9, and then I killed Anakin at the beginning of the next round prior to him resolving dice, I think. And then Kylo folded up after because Kylo didn't have Mind Probe or anything relevant on him, and I immediately pitched any of the big cards in my hand. But like, just the fact that deck can do that with no additional dice is very strong. If it had like more effective health or couldn't be bursted down as easily, I could definitely see where it could lobby as a potential God tier deck. But it's just well suited in the meta right now because you have a bunch of FN decks, and Kylo loves big expensive things in your hand, and Anakin's just a beast in general. So I think if you go to an event, you should probably be somewhere between Unkar, Emo Kids, Phasma, or Rainbow if you're looking for your tier 1s. After that, the 1.5s is pretty lengthy in my book. There's a lot of situational goodness. Like Vader Guard, I've been playing it a little bit. It seems pretty good. I dislike the bad situations you can be in sometimes because you have a lot of mitigation, and you have the Force Illusions, and you have Royal Guard, but sometimes the removal is situational. So it like isolation's cool, but like versus FN, isolation's not that amazing. So then it's like, all right, well I have deflex, but did you draw them? Did I hit? Did your opponent actually hit range damage that round? Did they already get to like do something? Did you like cast a vibro first? How did you go about it? Did you deflect like a 1 because they had a +2 showing, and then they got more? Like there's a lot of crazy things with Vader Guard. So for me, it's 1.5, just because if the Vader folds up, the game's over. It's also much harder to do anything relevant with Guard due to the inability to put abilities on him. So like, it sounds weird, but the thing is that you can't put a Force Illusion on guard. You would have to holocron it in. So he's taking his own damage via eating, 2s and 3s. If you then put a holocron on him, and you sneak a mind probe, he's getting sniped out. It's not the same as Raider, who gets to put the weapon out and then instantly cheat them. So rolled out, hit that mind probe special. It's special. You rolled out, hit that 4 for a resource. Let's smack you for 4. It's still susceptible to removal, and it kind of goes back and forth. Do they kill him to then not have to deal with that upgrade or you stealing the dice? The stealing the dice they don't care about, but if you put a holocron on it, he becomes public enemy number 1. If it switches into something, and he's squishy enough where you can murder him, because you can't cheat. You can't just Force Illusion and really protect him the same way. Plus, I think if you start with the opponent's field, Vader's going to be at 15 health, and 15 health last time I knew was pretty good for some crazy big blue guy. So, but that deck plays out very well too. It's very solid as tier 1.5. You could try to do stuff with cargo hold, but you just have to be very careful. Speaking of cargo hold, I think there's a bunch of Ray decks being not carried by cargo hold, but it's giving them an option versus FN. So any of the Ray decks have a bunch of action cheating between force speeds, vibro knives, and then some of them are still packing holdouts, which I personally agree with, just because the redeploy is very strong. And in the situations where it's okay, it's with Han, yeah, obviously you have guns. It's with Poe, obviously you have guns. Baze, obviously have guns. And then with Padawan, it's well, it don't have guns, but it makes holdout cost 1. And if you just think of it as an improved DH, I don't think you can go wrong there, because DH is very solid for a 1 cost upgrade. So holdout's just much better. So you can just throw it on them and get that additional die going. You got this 17% for the resource damage. You got the shield. It's pretty much the most you can hope for from a 1 cost card. So it definitely belongs there. The cargo hold decks in general, stopping or pretty much messing with FN decks is very good. People just have to keep in mind that you still have to maintain damage. If you can't kill FN by round 3, I don't think cargo holding is actually going to do anything relevant for you, unless your opponent just has tons of upgrades without redeploy and you killed whatever guy it was on. Because what's going to end up happening is that you're giving them additional time. Sorry, my nose is super itchy. You're giving them additional time, and it's the one thing you can't allow FN to get. If you're giving him a bunch of time and he's alive, because the resource gaining, he's still producing additional dice. The cargo hold not killing the die permanently. You're kind of messing with it for a round. So Ankar does whatever, the die comes out. FN does whatever, the die comes out. If you got to use it prior to you cargo holding, then it already got the benefit as if it was a regular upgrade. So then FN rolls out and you cargo hold and shift it and the die goes away, that's fine. But there's some small ways to try to play around it. And with Bala, you can't really give the upgrade to Bala, because what the hell are you going to do? Bala with upgrades is the original OG FN. Oh, I killed your guy, I get to untap, look, I used this die twice. But I haven't played with Funkar versus Cargo much, but whilst it wasn't similar, if you put it on Ankar wants to be the first one to roll anyways, so you're giving damage options and more blood options to Ankar, and then they'll continue with FN after. There's also if they pluck something from very, very big from your hand, then if they can cast 2 upgrades that round, your cargo holds could pretty much just not matter, because you cargo 1 and they continue off of the other one. It doesn't always occur, but it is something that happens. But it's also really tough to know. So how would I say this? People beat me up all the time because I'm pretty crass and blunt about everything, but people are not amazing at this game. But it's the same thing for anything. Like, when you think like top class golf players and tennis players and all those guys, there's a huge difference between the amateur circuit and then like the regular Joe. The same applies to card games, especially newer card games. When a newer card game starts, you don't have the tournament sharks, you know, looking for cash prizes and whatever. You have people that genuinely like to play the game or enjoy the social aspect, and it's much more casual. So there's not like a huge, I guess there's a huge discrepancy between like the area pros and like a regular player, and then like the players that try to play, you know, the pro tours and nationals of card games and like win, you know, the paid trips and whatever to like worlds. So like I forget what the numbers were, but it was once explained in Hearthstone that like the number of people that got to legend was like 3% or something. It was some obscenely small amount, and the thing was that getting to legend wasn't even hard. It was, you just had to grind it out, and then the top of legend was a whole different ball game. Like it was probably like 0.05% or something. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is that like you can play a bunch of games online, in person, and never really know if your deck was good, if you were like playing it well, if the match is actually bad or not. It's very hard to gauge. I can go play 100 games online and probably win like 90 of them. And whilst I don't mean irregardless of the deck. Like if I'm playing a starter deck, I'm clearly not going to beat everyone. But as long as I'm staying like tier 1.5 or higher, they're pretty good odds as long as I'm playing tight and staying on the top of the grid as far as like the strategy is concerned and optimized play, that I'll end up beating the opponent. Because there could be like weaker cards in their deck, like misplays, just inferior lines, you know, pitching to reroll one die when you could have rolled out the rest of your characters first before you started pitching, because your opponent's playing like Vader and you're down to 4, you play an upgrade, you're down to 3. If you know, pitch to roll and reroll, you now have 2. If you mitigate, you're at 1, and you've re-rolled on 1 die instead of the additional dice. So then like it becomes even more relevant when you're playing FN decks, because FN tends to overwrite. So you're probably playing a minimum of 2 weapons per round, possibly even 3, and then what's left in your hand. Like Vader's very good at annoying FN because you're tightening the amount of cards they're playing with, especially versus like Unkar, because Unkar's trying to play like Salvage or Imperial. So between one of the supports, one of the weapons, and discarding a card, they have 2 left for any sort of mitigation and rerolls, and it's not enough for them. So like Vader plays out well in the format because of that and everyone wanting multiple cards. And I kind of just like jumped off track quite a bit, so I'll apologize for that. But it's just very hard to get what one would deem as adequate testing. Like I've played against a few Ray Boz decks or Bays. I really don't know how to say his name. So if someone wants to let me know how I actually say that, that'd be cool, because I have not watched the movies. That deck plays completely differently from when someone is more adept at playing and someone isn't. Like completely differently, because of the merging of the melee and the ranged, and doing stuff at correct times, claiming early, leaving dice on the table. It's very tough. So I thought Poe was behind me, so I pulled over real quick. I think it is. That was definitely like a blacked out Ford, and it had the little light thingy on the left. So I don't want no random ticket, some crazy popo. But yeah, so back to the point that it's hard to get adequate playtesting. So it's important that even if it's not adequate, you want to just try to like rationalize what's going on, how the play skill is. So like let's say let's say I'm playing Funkar versus Phasma, or vice versa. I'm Phasma, opponent's Funkar. I have to get a bunch of reps in, and I'm sorry for the shaking. I have to get a bunch of reps in because there's going to be games where they don't hit Imperial, and I need to kind of see how those play out. And then there's going to be games where Imperial starts right at the beginning, or Salvage and Imperial start right at the beginning, and you know, maybe I get flooded for 2, and you just want to get repetitions to get into specific situations that do not seem amazing, and kind of rationalize what would be the best play if your opponent, if you were your opponent, and like the different things and how you would play around it. And like if your opponent kind of missteps there, don't look at the, oh, I won, I'm good, I crushed Funkar. It all goes back to the grid. Like did your opponent make really suboptimal lines of play? If they did you win because of that? Like, did they have the win on the table and miss it? Like, did they not realize if they had just, you know, done this whatever and paid 1, they would kill your guy, like, I don't know, Vibro Knuckler or something, because you had shields and they forgot they had a Vibro Knife, so they did it like later, but it was just like, why wouldn't they do that before? Because they could kill your guy. But, or like pitch discard your hand. Vibro Knuckler was a weird card. If I remember, I'll talk about Vibro Knuckler in a bit, because I actually dislike the card. It's very strong for small increments, and I think it's only good like round 3 or later, because of the damage into this card being relevant as like sneaky tricks later, but not nearly as much round 1 and 2 because you don't have the available resources. But yeah, so they're just like, it's hard to tell with testing what's accurate. So just get in as many games as you can and try to play against everything in the format. Don't just focus on Funkar, Phasma, Emo Kids, and like Rainbow, because if you just do that, you're gonna run into a Palpatine and be like, oh my god, like I just got crushed by this guy. Like, I didn't know my deck was weak against it. Or I played against Vader Guard and like, oh my god, like I took like 8 damage at the beginning and then he rolled out and 4-strike killed my guy. Like, you want to see these things coming ahead of time. So getting reps in, even if they're weaker ones, is beneficial. So get in as many as you can, especially if you're going to play like Gen Con or Nova. You're going to be put in all sorts of situations. You're not going to expect to play against Tier 1 every round for the entire event, and you kind of usually hope you don't play against Tier 1 every round for the entire event. But I'm trying to think, like I don't know, practice makes perfect, I guess is how I'd say it. Play games, try to get a group going. I talked about this thing before on the one article, and someone brought out to me that it looked like heavy advertisement, and I find what he said to be fair. So I went back and adjusted it to try to properly explain what I was trying to explain, which is that you want to find a group of players so that you can play with. You run gauntlets so you can get yourself prepared for the events. If you're planning to win store championships, Gen Cons, Novas, you can't do it alone. It's not likely playing alone. You're gonna be, just think of how bad groupthink is sometimes, where you're like, oh guys, it's the greatest deck, and everyone's like all in on the same game plan, and no one's testing other stuff, no one's trying to figure out how to counter it, and you're doing that automatically when you're, you know, a one-man army. So definitely try to get some other players, whether it's online or in your locals, and get a group going so you guys get testing in, get matches in, start learning like small bits here and there. You don't really have to do coaching. Like, it's faster and much more beneficial to learn from people that are much better. And there's several people doing coaching tiers, I believe. I know Tiny Grimes does one also, and he has several people on that as well. I think he just opened up slots, and I was talking to him, and he was talking about getting those got filled like instantly, and like that's great. Like I hope to see people being better. The reason we started the whole website thing was because we wanted to see people being better, watch the game, you know, grow and thrive. And I'm pretty ecstatic about people having 44 player events, 32 player events in their locals, or like store champs, and like that's amazing. Ours is much lower. We're sitting probably at like 16 to 20 max a lot of the time. The distance covered is very large, and the days seem to not be very relevant for everyone. But I don't know. The game being better is good. We'll see if any nerfs or anything happen after Gen Con. I'm not one to, cry and moan about whatever's broken in the game. Just learn to play with it or learn to play against it, and do what you can. Like, I think Pole Maz was fine where it was at. It was super explosive, and it was quite ridiculous, but it's been in every game. There's always some ridiculous deck, so you kind of just have to try to learn to play against it and do what you can do. And FN's probably going to be number one right now, and I think the meta's still well suited. There's a bunch of good decks. You can beat FN with any of the other good decks. So like, do it. Prove people wrong. Go crush Gen Con with emo kids. Well, maybe not, because I want my declaration that FN's going to win to be accurate. But I think it would be pretty exciting if emo kids won Gen Con, because then people just you have to lay off things like FN's broken, Imperial's too good, Like it keeps the lower grade decks back. I guess I would say it's the Guardian to top tier. Is if you can't really beat Funkar, you can't really be around. Same way that Poe was before. If you couldn't fight Poe because the amount of players playing it, you can't do it. You couldn't run the deck. But I think that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else to say. Practice with cargo holds. They're ridiculous. Expect to see them at Gen Con. Ray's in a very good spot right now. She's used in every freaking hero deck. It's probably because she's that good, and every other hero's not that good in comparison, or in the cheap way. So every deck's built around Maz or Ray right now as the second utility character, and then you've got the Rainbow 3 character deck. That actually reminds me, so the Rainbow 3 character deck's super interesting. It pretty much has the worst die sides available that you'll ever see. All the other regular decks, Rainbow, things like that, their characters still have 2 damage sides, whereas the Rainbow Hero Rainbow is Maz has 1, Ray has 1 in the modifier, and then people are running with Snap, who also only has 1. I wonder if they've considered just running the Commando, because the Commando has the 2 and he has the removal side, so it can be very relevant for having the ability to Maz into removal instead of Snap into eat resources. So it's interesting to see, because Maz is the 2 die character, or I'm trying to think, what do they have? They do that as 20 points, so they can get 10 points of some other character. You could have another yellow character, so you can more easily run second chance. But I think the deck's interesting. I don't know how good it is, because it really relies on getting upgrades out, and you need to hit the big ones, because if you don't hit a big one, then Imperial Inspection just sets you back, and you can't actually win because your damage output is missing. But it was interesting to see it. I want to see if it rises anymore. It's definitely something that people aren't really touching. And then Ray Baze is in a good place, because It's a Trap is very relevant right now for just sniping out people. That deck is built pretty much on the back of Awakenings, and I don't mean the set. I think it's the card is Awakenings, the one that lets you resolve a die showing a resource side. So all of Ray's die sides become relevant, and then Overkill becomes kind of ridiculous. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know. Expect some good stuff out of us soon. We're gonna kind of be dead probably Gen Con wise for articles, but we're gonna try to pre-schedule and set stuff up. blah blah blah. Check us at Patreon, blah blah blah. I know, guys, love the advertising, right? It's perfect. Just went all out to your hearts right there. But I don't know. Format's interesting. A lot of fun car. Whole lot of fun car. Be sure to play against it and know how to beat it. It doesn't seem hard to beat it, but there's lots of just bad situations it can put you in. Yeah, that's it. Over and out. Hyperloops, baby. Hyperloops.